okay. Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the chair of the independent panel is stuck in traffic, we're going to deal with that item at the end of the agenda. Right. So, with the calling of a general election, the council is required to adhere to statutory guidance for local authorities about publicity. The Code of Recommended Practice on Local Authority Publicity, issued under Section 4 of the Local Government Act 1986, prohibits councils from publishing any material which appears to be designed to affect public support for a political party. Taking on board the statutory guidance, the council constitution and officer advice, the decision was taken that no questions be accepted at this meeting. Those questions that were received will be given a written response soon after the general election has concluded. And for your information, the next meeting where public questions will be received is the 16th of January 2020. I have received apologies from the elected mayor, councillors Cassidy, Clark, Cruddas, Oliver, Wheatman, Mole. Do we have any other apologies for absence? Councillor Burdis? Councillor Wallace?
Councillor Barry and Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you. Councillor O'Shea? Councillor Graham? And
Councillor Newman.
Councillor Newman, thank you. Can you please sign the relevant attendance sheet that's going around, please? And if we have any declaration of interest, can I remind members that they must fill in the sheets or the cards on the desks and hand them in at the appropriate place. Thank you. Item 4. The next item is minutes of the council meeting held on the 26th of September 2019, which have been previously circulated. Can I ask the council to confirm those minutes, please? Agreed, thank you. Item 5, for the same reason that I announced at the beginning of the meeting, there are no motions submitted for this meeting. And now we go to item 7 on the agenda.
As it happens, Chair.
Oh.
He's just arrived.
We're going back to item 6 on the agenda because he's just arrived. So if you just bear one moment.
Give him a moment.
Just a moment.
That's called making an entrance, Chair. Magic.
I've left my glasses in the handbag. I cannot see. Welcome you to the meeting, and I loved the grand entrance. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for my parking space. I left at 5:15 from Sunderland Royal Hospital, of which I'm chairman, where we were running a public meeting, not quite as important as this one, but a good meeting all the same. I am John Anderson, the chairman of North Tyneside Independent Remuneration Panel, and I'm here to present the panel's report on the Members' Allowance Scheme for 2020-21. As you will be aware, the authority is required to approve the Members' Allowance Scheme prior to the commencement of each financial year, and the Council is required to have regard to the views of the Independent Remuneration Panel before agreeing the scheme. The panel has considered the level of basic and special responsibility allowances currently paid to members of this and nearby authorities, and recommends that there be no changes to the current Members' Allowance Scheme in this regard. In previous years, it has been agreed that Members' Allowance Scheme should be indexed to the annual pay award for employees working under the National Joint Council for Local Government Services, National Agreement on Pay and Conditions of Service. The panel considered the continuation of this index-linked approach, and its recommendation is to continue on this basis for the 2020-2021 financial year. The panel also recommends that the Council approve the introduction of a parental leave policy for members, including the payment of allowances for those members taking parental leave and the payment of a special responsibility allowance, if appropriate, where a replacement member is appointed to an SRA position held by the member taking paternal leave. Thank you, and I'm very happy to take any questions. Phew.
Do we have any questions? No? Can I ask Councillor Bruce Pickard to move the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. In moving this report, I'd like to thank Mr Anderson and his committee for the professional and enlightened attitude to this subject. The introduction of parental leave policy, while not a legal requirement, is surely a moral and a fair policy. It is in line with the joint toolkit promoted by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government and the LGA. It is designed to remove another obstacle in the way of encouraging women, parents and carers to become local councillors and take on leadership positions. It ensures that there will be no detriment as a result of becoming an elected representative, and I would ask Council to agree to the recommendations of the Independent Remuneration Panel.
Can I ask Councillor Parker Leonard to second the report, please?
I formally second that and reserve the right to speak.
I now invite members to speak to the motion. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I too would like to thank the independent panel represented by the Chairman and its members for the work that they've done. We do accept the recommendations of the panel, but with regard to the parental leave policy, we do feel it's important that all members recognise that if anyone is taking advantage of this policy, it's important that our residents still get an excellent level of representation and that they are not in any way disadvantaged by this policy. But subject to that, we do accept these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Can I now invite the mover of the motion to exercise the right to reply?
Just on that one issue, I'll try to be positive, even positive in accepting it, is that within our own group we have a rule where we will actually be there to support that individual, and therefore issues like surgeries and things will be discussed and how we actually cover them. And I would invite you to perhaps have a policy yourself within your own group to do that. Where there are smaller groups, unless Nigel's pregnant recently, but I mean, he may be going for adoption leave or other leave. If there is a difficulty with anybody, I'm sure if they discuss that with the Chief Executive and myself from the HR point of view, we'll see what we can do to help.
We'll now go to the vote. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Can I thank Mr Anderson for your attendance this evening, as short as it was. Thank you.
We'll do a video link next year.
We'll now go to item 7. Can I ask Councillor Mulvena to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. In moving the report, I'd like to mention that the Constitution Task Group has met to carry out the in-year review of the Constitution and address some issues that needed to be dealt with before the annual review that will be reported to the annual council meeting. This report contains recommendations on proposed amendments to the Constitution in relation to the budget, the policy framework approval of the authorities' accounts, and the Common Seal, parental leave policy for elected members, and contract standing orders. In relation to the budget and policy framework, it is proposed that the budget setting process is changed so that only one council meeting is held to determine the council's budget to bring our process in line with other authorities operating with an executive. Currently, we have a meeting before the 8th of February to receive the Cabinet's budget proposals and a second meeting to consider the Cabinet's proposals and any objections for those proposals. Under the new arrangements, a second meeting of the Council would be required if the Council objects to the Cabinet's proposals. In light of this change, the report sets out some changes to the dates of Cabinet and overview and scrutiny as part of the revised budget process. With regards to approving the authorities' accounts, it is proposed that the Audit Committee rather than full council is given the responsibility for approving the annual financial report and receiving the audit results report and the annual audit letter, and that its terms of reference be amended accordingly. We are proposing that the chairs of the council's involvement in attesting the common seal is no longer required, and that the authorisation for the sealing of documents by full council is no longer a requirement as practice is historic and not required in law. We are also proposing that the introduction of a parental leave policy for elected members based on a model scheme produced by the Local Government Association to cover maternity, paternity, shared parental and adoption leave and relevant allowances, and to enable replacements to be appointed where a member taking parental leave holds a position that is paid a special responsibility allowance. The final proposal is to correct an omission from the contract standing orders to authorise the use of the framework agreements. Any changes agreed by the Council tonight will need to be referred to the elected Mayor for her consent in accordance with Article 15 of the Constitution. I'd like to also thank the members of the Constitution Task Group for their work on the in-year review, and I would like to move the recommendations set out in paragraph 1.2 of the report, that the Council approve the proposed changes to the Constitution and refer those changes to the elected Mayor for her consent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mulvaney. And now can I ask Councillor Bruce Pickard to second the report?
I formally second and reserve the right to speak.
Right. Do we have any questions? Councillor O'Shea?
Thank you. In the last 2 or 3 years, I seem to remember that at the council meeting where we were considering the budget, one of the parties in this room put forward a critique, and I'm not quite certain if your advisors are aware of that, but I was under the understanding that the last time we were in opposition, we had to put forward a budget proposal, a fairly detailed budget proposal, and I'm just wondering, does the new procedure give any clarity around a critique or a full-blown budget where there is an alternative budget coming forward?
Can I ask Mr Roberts to respond to you, please?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of providing either a critique or a fully blown alternative budget, the process essentially will be exactly the same as it is now. It's simply that it will be condensed into a single meeting. So a critique would need to be provided in advance of the meeting for the purposes of dealing with any queries that come up as part of questions raised as part of presenting the item. And then budget proposals that form part of a budget objection would also need to be presented so that they can be considered. The deadline for presentation of budget objections is, as it has been previously, 2 days before that final meeting.
Do we have any further questions? I now ask members to speak to the motion. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. The report has recommendations for 5 amendments before us. We've already indicated our support with regard to the parental leave policy, and we accept the recommendations with regard to the contract standing orders and the common seal changes. But we do have concerns that the changes with regard to the accounts and the budget process is, in fact, reducing the amount of scrutiny which all members will be providing to those matters. We are concerned about that.
I could, yeah, to assist. As I say, the process will essentially be exactly the same. It's just that instead of having 2 separate meetings to actually consider the budget and make a decision, that will be condensed into a single meeting. So all the previous opportunities to be involved in either scrutinising the budget proposals or feeding into those proposals either through meetings or with direct contact with officers will remain as they are now.
Anything else? Can I now invite the mover of the motion to exercise a right of reply?
Thank you. I don't really need the reply. I'd just like to refer to the recommendation in paragraph 1.2 and ask the council to approve.
Right. We'll now go to the vote. Those in favour?
It's 42, Chair.
And those against?
Right. No, there you are, that's carried, Chair.
Thank you, that's carried. Well, there's no common seal, is there, to think?
Well, you'll get this time round as well.
Yes, well, yeah. Right, the last time, item 7. Can I move that the common seal be affixed to all deeds and documents required for carrying into effect the various decisions of the council made since this last meeting? Right, item 8, Chair's announcements. First of all, I'd like to congratulate North Tyneside Council actually and Paul Hanson and his team for the work they did on the remembrance services. They were run exceptionally well, and I had the Lord Lieutenant to pass on her congratulations to the council. She said it was one of the best she's attended, very well organised, and the numbers were outstanding, she said. So I'm passing on her congratulations to the council. Also, I'd like to congratulate Operation Veteran, which is one of my charities. They received the Armed Forces Silver Covenant for the work that they do in the borough. So congratulations, Gary, to you and the Armed Operation Veteran on this award. I'd like to say Christmas cards. I will not be sending Christmas cards out as chair of the council. It's a very costly and expensive thing to do. So I will be sending an electronic one, I think. So, yeah. And any monies that would be saved on sending out Christmas cards will be donated to the charities Operation Veteran and the North East Air Ambulance. For those that don't know, on Friday the 6th of December, here in this room, there'll be a Christmas market. The Victorian Christmas market takes place over the Saturday and Sunday, but for those people that work in Quadrant or on the business park who don't actually live in the borough and don't come back into the borough for the Christmas market, there will be one in this room on Friday the 6th of December from 11 till 2. It's the stalls that would normally be, that will be in Northumberland Square, but they'll be here on the Friday. So those of you that wouldn't normally go out in the cold and stand for hours freezing, you can come here on the Friday and buy your goods. And all the proceeds will, well, not, the stalls that are taking a table will be going to the charities. There will be a raffle as well, so the more the merrier. It'll be open to all the businesses on Cobalt, so hopefully we'll get a good turnout. So those of you that would prefer to see the market in the warm, you are all welcome here on the Friday. Also, the Chair's Ball still on the 15th of February. Them that haven't got your tickets, get your hands in your pockets. And it's open to all parties, so if you would like to attend, it would be welcome. And Nigel, you've already got yours, so thank you very much. And those sitting in the back in the corner, say Phil Scott laughing. Yes, it would be nice to have all our officers there as well. So anybody that hasn't got them, they're still on sale, and I'm sure Carol will happy to help, and as will Ashley. And can I just convey my thanks to Ashley, who stood in for Carol while she's been on a secondment. Unfortunately, Ashley's off ill, so but I would like for Paul, if you could pass on my thanks. She's done a great job, and welcome back to Carol, wherever she is. So that ends Chair's announcements. Bruce, do you have any announcements on behalf of the Mayor? No. No? And so there's no questions by members of the council, so here endeth the meeting. Can I wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy and safe New Year, and we'll see you back here at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.